So this is your first time on a split board and you are trying to summit Baker right now? And I said, yeah.
Welcome to the Exploring Washington State podcast. Here's your host, Scott Cowan.
Well, Erica, welcome to the show. I just threw you, we're going live now, so welcome. Erica Kutz is my guest. Erica, you are the brand steward at Mountainmind. You are an ambassador for multiple outdoor brands. We actually know the same, it's not the same person, but when you were working up at Crystal, I threw a name out at you that I worked with 20 some years ago. You knew Dee Patterson, and you were recommended to us by one of our previous guests. So all of that being said, where do you want to start? Where do you want to start this conversation? Do you want to talk about graphic design? Do you want to talk about snowboarding, splitboarding? What do you want to talk about?
We can talk. I mean, I'm always down to talk about snowboarding.
Awesome.
I'm always down to talk about splitboarding, just because that's approaching. That season's coming.
So you're based out of Bellingham.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up 20 minutes outside of Seattle, just over the lake in Kirkland, Washington.
Now, let's be honest, 20 minutes outside of Seattle is really about a block out of the city limits with traffic. You can't, no, I kid, but all right. So you grew up in Kirkland.
Yes.
All right. All
correct.
Right. When did you start skiing or snowboarding?
I started skiing as soon as I could walk. My dad grew up in the Puget Sound area. So he basically raised my brother and I and taught my mom how to ski as well. He raised us in the same mountains that he was able to learn how to ski in. So that was pretty cool.
Where did you guys start? Where did you start your skiing and snowboarding adventures then?
Snoqualmie Pass.
Okay. Yeah, so the home of the Cascade concrete.
Yep. I think it breeds good skiers.
Okay.
And Alpental as well. But I didn't really start riding Alpental until I became a snowboarder. Okay.
So at an early age, well, you're still doing it. Not that you're old, I don't mean like that, but at a very early age, you were exposed to this sport. You're still doing it. You've enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. I'm not a skier. I'm certainly not a snowboarder. And this whole splitboarding thing that we'll get to is up until a few weeks ago, I didn't even know what a splitboard was. I mean, the guy said it was a splitboard. I'm like, anyway, we'll get to that. I'm putting you on the spot. Where's your favorite place to snowboard in Washington State?
I'd say anywhere in the backcountry, especially in the North Cascades. I just love the high alpine. I love being able to get out in that rugged terrain where, you don't realize how you don't get to see that every day down lower in the valleys, because there's peaks just hidden behind one another. And once you're up there, you can see everything and you can see all these little zones that you are like, wow, if I had a couple more days out here, I could probably go ride this, and this. So it's very expansive. It's just to see out here.
So help me out, because backcountry to me means a gravel road that's next to the interstate. I'm not an outdoors person at all. My initial reaction is, isn't that complicated? Like, it's not like going up to the parking lot at Snoqualmie Pass, parking your car, getting on a lift and going down the hill. You've got to work. Mm-hmm. You've got to work here. Mm-hmm. But is there not a level of danger involved?
Definitely. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'd say it's years of experience and avalanche training, avalanche awareness to understand, and also constantly paying attention. Like in the wintertime, it becomes an obsession. Like you're looking at the snow forecast, you're looking at how the snowpack is stacking up. So you know what's happening in the mountains and you know how to read, but you're also looking at wind and temperature and aspects. So you know what you know how to read the mountains. You can not only read the surface, but every day, I mean, when you go out there, you always test the stability of something before you drop in to make sure that that it's a safe line for you and your
help
friends.
me out here, because you say you test, and once again, I know nothing. So, but you can't, without actually going down the hillside, you can't really test other than right where you start. Yeah. So do you just is it just a kind of an educated guess and assumption that if the snowpack is okay here, that I should be okay down there?
Well, there's always a risk. And I think that's the part that is the scary part. Okay. But you usually take a sample. So you'll find an aspect and so like a north facing aspect, for example, and you're looking for a similar slope degree of like what you're going to be riding. And you'll dig in and do a test where you can see the layers of the snow and like how things are bonding, and you can kind of like tap it and you can see where it might shear off. Okay. So really it's just it's risk tolerance, but it's also just being smart and knowing like what your environment is and what's available, what information is available in the snow.
So when you do this, you go up by yourself without a cell phone, just untethered from the world. Not kid. How does when you do this, are you going up with a group of people?
Usually, yeah. I try to keep groups like smaller than 4 or 5. Yeah. Okay.
And so give me an example. Help me wrap my brain. You said the North Cascades. Give me an example of, in sake of conversation, we're recording this on a Wednesday. Let's say it's a Wednesday in January and there's snow up in the mountains. Okay. So it's January and you want to go up snowboarding today. Where are you going to go? Where's the go-to place that you go?
If I had all day? Yeah,
you got all day.
Okay. I'd probably go out to like Highway 20. I love it out there, and you can drive like up the highway and go hike for a few miles up a few thousand vertical feet and find some really sweet terrain. But there's also, anywhere from basically Highway 20 or like Everett to the Canadian border. Like there's tons of stuff to explore. So I'd probably be like researching online and, gathering my crew and seeing who else wants to
who's got a Wednesday all day.
Yeah, who else wants to humor this crazy idea? Like let's go up. It also just like depends on what's accessible, right? Like I don't have an overlander vehicle, so
yeah. So like, what are you driving up there? What do you?
I drive a Honda Element, all-wheel drive. Yeah.
Okay, so I have a Honda Pilot, so it's a reasonable vehicle, but it's not going to get you super off road.
Yeah, exactly.
At least mine doesn't go super off road. Okay, but you just said you're going to hike. You're going to hike up. So all I'm hearing is this is a lot of work. I'm hearing. So this is what I'm hearing. I'm hearing, well, we're going to research. We're going to have to herd the cats to get together. We're all going to pile in the Honda Element. We're going to drive, let's say, an hour. And then we're going to hike up a few thousand feet. That won't take long. And then we're going to ride down.
Yeah. Sounds fun.
It sounds like a lot of work, but, but so my question is, if you go to all that work, is that to get one ride in that day, or what's the payoff here? Is it not just one run down the hillside?
It depends on the objective. If you want to ride something really cool, it's like maybe that's your one objective of the day. There's a certain couloir, there's a certain peak. Or if there's something a little bit shorter and you just want to get laps in and get some powder, it's the best way, I think, to get the fresh powder that everyone's chasing in the resort. I love a good resort day. Don't get me wrong. I love skiing resorts, but it's a lot easier on my knees and my all my joints to ride softer snow.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. How long had you been snowboarding when you started doing this more?
Oh gosh,
backcountry stuff?
Let's see. I think I was 13 when I started snowboarding, and then I think I was 21, 22 when I started backcountry. I think, yeah, that was my main. I like had gone on a couple of little trips with like snowshoes and my snowboard strapped to my back with friends in college, which was very stupid. I had no avalanche awareness and no training. But my friends were like, "Oh, you'll be fine. Just like come on this hut trip with us.
Snow.
We'll take care of you." So, you know, I definitely like am grateful for those experiences, but I don't recommend doing that because if something happens to your friends, like you're going to feel terrible because you don't know what to do.
Right.
But fortunately there was a lot of us and we all kind of stuck together. But yeah, so I guess I can't do math this early in the morning. Yeah, but I go ahead.
But you went to Western just to give the audience a little bit. Yeah. So you went to Western. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Just the foothills of the North Cascades, really.
All right. So put you on the spot. What's your favorite memory of all of these so far?
I went on a solo road trip up to Fernie, BC back in 2019, right before the pandemic. And I was on my way to Revelstoke to go to their Split Fest because I had a couple friends working up there and giving presentations. And I had a friend and mentor who had given me a lot of advice on international travel, like in Chile and New Zealand, like what mountains to go check out there. And I really wanted to like meet him and go touring with him. And then a brand that I'm friends with, like Karakoram, they make backcountry snowboard bindings in North Bend. And yeah, they were giving like demos and there's all these other brands. So anyways, I made the pilgrimage up to the, I guess like the Powder Highway area. I don't know. I can't like off the top of my head, like I can't tell you what the Powder Highway all encompasses. I think there's like a really specific area, but I think Revelstoke is a part of that. And yeah, Golden and Kicking Horse and that whole zone. But that's really like, that was just the most amazing week, I'd say, of my snowboard riding career.
Okay. So we're gonna fact check that, by the way, just to make. No, I'm just kidding. You could have.
Okay. You could have said someone fact check me.
You could have said Calgary and Edmonton, and I would have just nodded. Oh yeah, those are Canadian places. I get it. Okay. So that was the memory that serves you. All right. Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned splitboarding a couple of times. My knowledge of splitboarding was I had a guest on who runs Gear House, and they rent equipment. And during this conversation with him, he mentions splitboarding, and I probably had this perplexed look on my face. And he kind of explained to me. And up until that time, I'd never heard of this at all. How on earth did this contraption get? What's the story to splitboarding? How did it come to be, and how common is it now?
I'd say it's very common. You see a lot of splitboarders out there now. It's not as big as backcountry skiing. I think a lot of people try splitboarding and then they give up and they just switch to skiing. So the gear has improved quite a bit since I think it started in the late 90s. Also need to fact check me on that. I don't know the exact date. But backcountry skiing and snowboarding has been around for thousands of years. Like I've seen videos of people like, doing it old school where they put the yak skins on the bottoms of their like wooden planks and they're touring up into their backyard and having a great time on the way down. So it's been a way to travel in the snow in an efficient way and have a fun ride down. Yeah, for a long time. But splitboarding specifically, it's something that it's like there's just no matched feeling than it's like surfing. It's what keeps surfers coming back. And it's like once you make that connection and once something clicks in your brain that like writing powder feels good, that's like all you want to do. And then it just like makes you smile, and it's super fun, and it's a fun experience to share with your friends, and it's a really cool way to experience the backyard and go places you wouldn't normally go.
All right, so help me out here. So a split board is basically, super layman's explanation of this, you're going to probably correct, or you're going to fact check me. It's basically a snowboard that's been cut in two. So it's like, to me, that's just translation. That's fat skis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So because it's split in two, you can kind of use it to climb with. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. Now, Gearhouse was saying that people like put carpet underneath them to help. And I'm like, huh? But why not just use skis?
I think there's something special about riding one board.
Okay.
For some people, like I said, it feels a lot like surfing. And there's just, I grew up skiing, so I have memories of like the boots, the skis, the poles, and like everything. And like when you garage sale, it's like your shit's all over the place, all over the mountain. But when you're snowboarding, it's like, it's just you and the board. And
but you still have bindings, you still have boots, you don't have poles, but you
do have poles, but you usually splitboarders get the collapsible ones that fit inside your backpack.
Okay.
So that, but some splitboarders like to, it depends on what kind of terrain you're in, but some people will be like snowboarding with poles, which is a funny look, but it totally works.
Okay. How did you get exposed to splitboarding? I'm going to guess, is the progression your dad taught you how to ski on two regular traditional K2 skis. Mm-hmm. And then you got into snowboarding because it was becoming, everybody was doing it. Type thing. It's very common to see people snowboarding nowadays. Okay.
In the early 2000s, I was like, I was just like really entranced by the skate and snow and surf culture. And, I'd see these like badass women with this long flowy hair, like shredding and carving. And I was like, wow, that sense of like empowerment and that sense of strength, but also the like femininity and the fluidity that you can find, like, it just kind of becomes like a dance, like with whatever like medium you choose. But I've always been a total tomboy. Like I was reading like Thrasher magazines, and that I found it like that, of course my parents were like, no, you're not like gonna subscribe to that. But every once in a while I would get to like pick one up, and you like open a page and it's like a like really bloody like wipeout or a broken bone, and you're like, oh God, like I'm not ready to face that side of skateboarding. But I had a really old school longboard that I would try to teach myself on, and I just didn't have like the community or the mentorship necessarily, but there were like people that I looked up to, and obviously social media wasn't really a thing back then to the extent that it is now. So I wasn't following anyone on Instagram. I just like wasn't looking at anyone else really and how they were doing things as far as like celebrities go, or athletes. But there was like movement and there was culture that I was really influenced by, and that was skate, surf, snow, which I feel like all require a plank of some sort to ride.
A plank of some sort to ride. Perfect. So let's talk about longboarding for just a second.
Totally.
Have you ever heard of this downhill longboarding? Like down it. in like out of Goldendale.
It's insane, like seeing the kind of stuff that people can ride. I had a guest on. They own a coffee roaster, right? And we're talking, and typically the way the conversation goes, and you'll get this question a little later. It's like, so when you're not doing the thing that you do, what do you like to do, right? So we're there, when you're not roasting coffee, what do you like to do? And he goes, well, I'm a longboarder and I race downhill. And the guy's about my age, which means he should be in a home. And I'm like, what do you mean longboard? He goes, oh, well, there's up in, and I forget the place, but out of Goldendale, Maryhill, I think it is. Yeah, we grew up camping there.
Okay, so Maryhill, I guess this estate that was made by a guy who was in the concrete business. And so there's like 2 miles of pristine concrete winding down the hill. And so they race downhill and he'll hit like 50 some miles an hour on his longboard.
Wow.
And all I can think of is broken bones and, missing teeth. And then he tells me that his daughters, who are early teens at best and probably preteen, they're riding luges down the hill.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, okay, I am not an adrenaline junkie. But on some level, all of that sounds really cool in a scary sort of way. It sounds like that would probably be up your wheelhouse too. It's a plank. It's got wheels. I guess you could just ride down a hill really fast.
Yeah, I guess when it comes to risk and when it comes to injury, knock on wood, I've avoided a fair amount. And I think that's just choosing, like, I'm also not the most coordinated person, but yeah, risk management.
Okay.
And also just like risk tolerance. Like my tolerance for risk is like, I like to take things in bite-sized chunks. But when it comes to like dropping a cliff or, riding a certain steep face, it's like, okay, let's just work our way up to that, because I'm mostly self-taught in everything. Like I haven't really had any like former lessons. So when it comes to like technique, I'm kind of unlearning some bad habits. And the longboarding thing is more just fun and cruisy and a fun way to get around and get that kind of surfy feeling. My partner and I recently decided to try and longboard down from Snoqualmie Pass to Franklin Falls. And that's quite the road, I must say. It's a one-way road out of a campground, which we were staying at. And we thought, might as well, like it's only like a mile. And it's kind of a fun, like, smoky day activity. Didn't take too much, like, output. And we were both in over our heads. Like, he has more of a carver longboard where it's almost like snowboarding. Like, you can really get those nice fluid turns. But I just have this little, like, rocket. And so it's like I just wanted to go, like, straight down the hill. And I just took it in bite-sized chunks to preserve my ankles.
Okay, so we rabbit hole there. Splitboarding. How were you exposed to that?
Okay, yeah. Splitboarding. Let's see. So my first like backcountry trip, I was with a group of friends from college that were all from Idaho and Montana and Wyoming, like all these just rad mountain people. And sorry about the notification there. Rad mountain people that I really looked up to and just had a great time with. And they invited me out to a little backcountry trip up to a hut. And I think I mentioned this earlier, but just, snowshoes and my snowboard and my overnight gear strapped to my back. And I remembered that feeling of being just walking up the hill, like breathing with each step and thinking about how, my heritage is kind of Northern European mutt. But I just could feel that there's this sense of like, this is like in my blood, like this is what my ancestors did. And this is really this is really like what my body is like happy doing. And what makes me happy is like being at higher elevations and being in cold weather and just kind of feeling the elements. And I saw my friends, so my friend, his nickname is Squirrel, or the Flying Squirrel. He's an athlete for Burton Snowboards, and he runs a window cleaning business up here in Bellingham. He's been really successful with that, and he's a professional snowboarder as well. And he just had a split board, a Burton, I don't know, Family Tree. I think they started that around that time, but yeah, he had a split board, and another friend, Ryan, or Rimo, he had a split board, and I just thought, that looks so much more efficient and so much more just fluid and less gear, so you don't have to carry your snowboard on your back.
Right.
And they just had their split board on the bottom of their feet, and those little unidirectional stickers that I like to call them, like hairy stickers, which are your skins that go on the bottom, and then your bindings, adjust. So I first rode a split board not until maybe later that spring or the next year at Alpental Vertfest, where they do a race from the bottom of the mountain to the top, and then you ski down, and that's skiers and snowboarders, but they had a bunch of demo tents, and I rented demoed a Volet split board. And got to ride that in the side country. Like, my dad took me around and kind of showed me some of the side country and the chutes there. So I got to experience riding a split board as a solid board to see what that felt like. And it felt really good. It didn't chatter. It didn't come apart or anything. It felt quite solid. Okay. And I think the technology has gotten so much better and lighter since then, and it just feels like you're riding a normal snowboard. Karakoram makes their tip and tail clips that are really bomber, and their bindings that help keep everything together. And I've been riding Arbor snowboards since I started snowboarding when I was 13. So they make really amazing women's specific split boards, and I've been able to kind of just see how the technology has advanced since then. But my first like real split board experience, like getting up on the skins and walking uphill, was summiting Mount Baker in 2015. And I had convinced a friend who's a mountain guide to take me up the south side. We went up the Squawk Glacier, and we had started at 3 a.m., dodging frogs on the trail, and it's dark out, like the sun's coming up over the glaciers. And we got to the snow line, and I put my split board together and started walking. And this is a demo that I had gotten from the American Alpine Institute. I had won like a raffle to rent a certain amount from the Alpine Institute. And I thought, I'm going to rent a split board and climb Baker as my celebration of graduating college and moving on from Bellingham for the time being. And thought, well, what better way to do that than to go ride the peak that has been, the great white watcher, the Como Kolshan, over the city. And so yeah, I put my skins on and immediately started sliding backwards. And realized, I don't really know how to do this. And my friend said, so this is your first time on a split board and you are trying to summit Baker right now? And I said, yeah. And he's like, oh my God, like, what are we in for? This is at like 5:30 in the morning or 6 in the morning. Just like, what did I get myself into? But we made it. We summited, and I definitely was like, wow, this is one of the most intense experiences of my life at the time, and just the most physically exerting. Like, at the time I was experimenting with like different dietary things too, and so I was like raw vegan at the time. And I was just like, I don't know how much like dried mango I can eat for this, like, to feel. And I experienced like a very like heavy bonk, which is like when you don't have enough food, you don't have enough water, and you feel like your body just like totally giving out on you. But we got to the summit and it was just like the funnest ride down, like thousands of feet on this like really nice corn, and jumping over little crevasses, trying not to get swallowed up there. But yeah, Mount Baker was my first like splitboard trip.
Okay.
Yeah. don't highly recommend that way of going, but I don't like to half-ass anything.
No, I'm getting that. So you summit Baker. That's your first time summiting Baker. You first time snow splitboarding. What have you done for fun since?
I have just become like a total splitboard nerd. Not as much of like a gear nerd. Like I have friends that are really into it, but I did the turns all year thing for a while, where you make a point to go splitboarding and go ride some kind of snow at least once a month. So that includes August and September and October, when you have to hike really far to go find snow.
So where did you go to find snow in September?
Primarily, I mean, Mount Rainier. You can see snow up there, so you just have to hike a little further to get there. Or in the North Cascades, like there's a few trails you can go, but it just really depends on like what the snow level and like what the snowpack.
Now, have you ever summited Rainier?
I've gotten pretty like close, and I wanted to go for it this year, but as far as like lining up the conditions, I would just, because I want to snowboard off it, I think like off the summit, but there's a lot that needs to kind of line up, and your schedule needs to be kind of like, okay, Rainier's good right now, let's go. And my buddy Max, he's a really just powerful human and athlete, got like the line that got the route that I was like looking at this year. And I saw that he had like powder from like the summit to like midway, and then like corn, and he rode all the way down to the bridge, past the Nisqually chutes, and I just thought, oh man, like he got the perfect day to do it, or else it can be really dangerous.
How long does this take?
You can do it in a day.
So you go up and back in a day.
Yeah, if you're like Max and you have superhuman strength, yeah. Or most people do it in 2 days, 2 or 3 days.
In 2 days.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. I've had a lot of climbers on, a lot of people that have summited Rainier. I have a guest. He's been on twice now. I'm actually going to record another episode with him this coming weekend, so he'll be on for a third time. And I was introduced to him because he's a musician. So we're talking, and I think of him as a guitar player, right? And we're talking, and he likes to go hiking. And I thought, he said something about summiting Rainier. And I said, so you summited Rainier? He goes, oh yeah, I think 13 times now.
Wow.
And I'm just like, huh? What? He goes, oh yeah, that's what we do. So this summer they recreated a hike from the 1800s. Instead of riding horses from Stellicum area and DuPont up to Rainier, they rode electric bicycles to replicate the horses. And then I don't know that they summited it. I'll find this out when I sit down with them this weekend. Yeah, there's some weird people in the world. I mean, we all do. We all have our weird hobbies. I mean, because like what I'm into, you might go, "Oh, that's really weird. I wouldn't want to do that." And I'm not thinking I don't want to do what you're doing. I'm thinking I'm terrified of doing what you're doing, so I won't do it because it's too scary for me. And besides, it's cold, and I don't. Even though I'm Northern European heritage, we've migrated to Southern Europe. We want the warm climate. I don't want cold. Anyway,
hence being on the east side.
Yeah. Well, but it gets cold here too.
Yeah, totally.
Anyway, I kid. This last winter was brutal. So you summited Baker first time and first time really on split boards. That's okay. That's a head scratcher to me, honestly. That is like a,
Same.
You say you're risk adverse, but
I look back at I think that was just pure stupidity on my part.
Nothing personal, but okay, I agree with you.
Yeah. I would not encourage anyone to do this. Like, I don't even really like telling that story that much because it just,
wow.
I just don't want to encourage other people to do that because it puts others at risk as well.
Right. No, and I'm teasing you, but at the same time, I agree that it's, it is a thing. So you're not paying the bills by splitboarding. You're not paying the bills by snowboarding and all that. You're paying the bills by doing graphic design, brand work for people. But your work seems to have very much influenced by the outdoors.
Definitely.
So how have you been able to find that niche?
Yeah. So I'll kind of go back a few steps, just to give you a little bit more context. But when I was deciding which colleges to go to and what to study, I grew up sailing. I grew up in the Puget Sound. I loved marine biology. And my original idea was to go be a marine biologist because the flora and the fauna are so amazing. And so there's just discoveries to be had in the ocean still. And I just love like the idea of being outside and like getting to commune with nature. So I originally thought, okay, I think it'd be cool to be more in the marine world. But I had applied for colleges and looked at prereqs and looked at everything, and everyone, was just. And I took some high level like art classes in high school, and I took some pre-college art classes through Cornish College of the Arts, and where we learned some more fine art skills like figure drawing and oil painting and screen printing and printmaking, and both of my parents were career designers. My dad was an art director for Boeing, and then my mom was an apparel ski wear designer for Pacific Trail, and both Seattle-based companies. And they said you should be a designer. You'd be a good designer. You should just be a designer. And I thought like, okay, but like the environment needs saving and everything like needs. Like we need to pay attention to, and we grew up pretty like eco-conscious and pretty health conscious as well. So there was that influence. But also we spent a lot of time outdoors together as a family, whether that was sailing or windsurfing or skiing or whatever the season provided. And I went to Western because I have a family history of other family members going here, and just good kind of, it just lined up with financial, like, I looked at art colleges in California and whatnot, and it was expensive for our family. So we decided to keep it local. And they also had, Western had Huxley College of the Environment, which is now College of the Environment. And they had just like an amazing environmental program. So I thought, okay, my plan is I'll minor in environmental studies and I'll major in graphic design. And that way I can learn more about the climate. I can learn more about marine biology. I can take ocean science courses. I can take ecology. But I can also take like sociology and psychology and philosophy and all the other things that I'm interested in. So I think that all really led to where I'm at now. And that is just kind of coming back to like my roots as a human. But I did internships in college, and one of those internships was with a local agency in Bellingham that was hired to do the rebrand for Ski to Sea, which is the relay race that happens here like every Memorial Day weekend. And so that was like my first kind of outdoor industry brand project. And I got to do like the website for that, and help with I wasn't the one who designed the brand identity for that, but we worked together as like a small team to kind of bring the brand to life. And that was kind of my first exposure. And then I saw there was a internship and position at Frequency, the Snowboarders Journal, and the Ski Journal, and it's also the Fly Fish Journal. So it's three magazines under one brand and or one company, and they're based in Bellingham. So I applied for an internship there for my next one, and I just loved it. Like I loved working with like the beautiful content, working with like the photographers and the writers and all of the just amazing stories that people had. And I was just really inspired to keep going in that route. And then I worked for a skate and snowboard retailer based in Seattle as well. Zoomies, as many of you might know.
Yeah.
So
just a little company.
Yeah, they're
just a little.
They're
company.
huge. Yeah, I worked on the web team there, and then I decided to try and go try tech, and so I worked at Microsoft for about 9 months, and I decided although it was a very wonderful experience with amazing humans, I was in a time in my life where I was having like a quarter life crisis, and I was thinking like, maybe design isn't what I want to do. Like maybe I want to go be a mountain guide. Maybe I just want to, like, I was burning myself out because I was also doing freelance. So I was moonlighting, and I've been freelancing since 2011. So just hustling really hard on clients of all kinds. So health and wellness, outdoor recreation, whatever, there's CBD brands, like there's kind of been a good array of clients. But that's how I kind of got into the outdoor industry, I guess.
Yeah, no. So I'm looking, one of the places that you have on your resume is Crystal Mountain Resort. With the title of Brand Identity Manager. Walk me through that.
So
what did you do for Crystal?
Don't
say I helped build their brand. No, I mean, build it out a little bit more. What is a brand identity manager doing for Crystal?
So a brand identity is really just the expression in like who a brand is. Like when you think about like your favorite company, like you think about like, okay, you've got their logo, you've got their ethos, you've got their like the way that they write, the way that they take photos, the way that they take videos, like, or there's a whole system, like an identity system that works together to create this voice. So brand voice, I mean, that's what I work on with an agency where they do a lot of like copywriting and voice development, but an identity is kind of the holistic approach. And I had a professor once tell me that she's like, your brain kind of works like when you're doing like you're working on projects, like your brain kind of works as like a funnel, like all the ideas are up here, and then you refine until you have like the final product. And that's final product is the brand. So it's like, okay, you have this cloud of concepts, like this theme, and that's the identity. But the expression could be just a logo or just a color scheme, or there's kind of a lot of different avenues that a brand can be expressed.
So did Crystal bring you in to help clarify their vision? Then did they have the cloud full of ideas and they were uncertain of how to what they wanted to do, or how did, because Crystal's been around for a long time. So what was their impetus to bring in this type of position? Just a refresh, if you will?
Yeah, I don't know if Crystal knew what was coming when I applied for a job there. I was like coming in super like really amped up. Like I just spent a year in New Zealand, like living, working like remotely, living out of a van, snowboarding and surfing and climbing, and just like super amped up on all of that. And I had kind of some clients down there, and was working for clients in the States as well. And I was just like, I had fully recovered from my quarter life crisis and had reaffirmed my purpose in life, that yes, I am a brand person. Like I love doing brand design. And I want to focus on, I wasn't necessarily like going to funnel myself into the outdoor industry, but I was like, I thought like, okay, if I could do anything with my life, like what would it be? What sounds the most fun? And the answer that came up really organically was I'd snowboard as much as possible and do graphic design and make cool art. And I was like, okay, that would be like my ideal reality. So once I thought about that and started kind of like looking at patterns and looking at like ideas of like how that could manifest itself, a colleague from like an old instructor job at Baker had reached out and said, hey, we have a job at Crystal, and there is some design involved, but it would be like a cool opportunity for you to get your foot in the door here. So, hey, and I found you have a place to live. Like, here's a room you can rent. And so I drove to Crystal Mountain, and they told me to dress mountain casual for my interview. So whatever that, like, I was like, oh, I can wear Patagonia. This is great. And I like went to my interview, and it was primarily a group sales position. So I learned more about sales and marketing. And there was about 3 or 4 other people on the marketing team. And after about a month of doing sales, they realized, wow, like Erica sucks at sales. So they said, no offense, because I just don't want to sell someone, like I'm not good at upselling things. Like I'm not a salesperson. I'm like, well, if you don't want it, don't buy it. Like, I'm not here to like convince. Like I'm too honest for my own good. And
well, no, don't seriously. Don't, there's nothing wrong with that. My day job is sales. Okay. Yeah, totally. So my day job is sales, and it's completely okay if the prospect doesn't want the add-on.
Yeah.
They don't buy the add-on.
Right.
You don't have to feel guilty that you didn't, sell them something they didn't want. That's good salesmanship.
Yeah.
It's bad salesmanship when you sell them, the extended warranty on the 2011 Ford Explorer that's got 300,000 miles on it that's going to explode in 2 days. That's bad.
That's bad. Yeah.
So don't say you're not a good salesperson.
Okay.
That's limiting self-talk. Now we can move on.
All right. Thank you.
But you sucked at sales.
I was not good. Well, so I also like numbers, like, looking at spreadsheets and things, like my brain just kind of turns off. Okay. I can understand numbers when they have context and there's like a visual expression. It's like, okay, I know that 1080 by 1080 is like a social media square. Like in my brain, that's like locked in because I have like a very photographic memory. Like I can look at something and just remember the details, but it's like, but I see the vertical line, I see the zero, I see, I see like shapes in numbers, and I have to like, anyways. So they were like, Erica's really right-brained, like she's better at doing design work, so we're just gonna let her do design work, and we're gonna bring someone else in for sales, because like we were pretty overwhelmed at that point, like with only 3 people on the marketing team, as you can imagine, for the world, or not the world, Washington's largest ski area, having only 3 marketing people. And this was like before we were we had gotten bought by Altera, which is like the company that owns like the Icon Pass. And so once I had started, when they like I'd started just like at that turning point, like Altera had just taken over, not taken over. That sounds like there's still like a lot of autonomy. Like it wasn't like they were like, this is the way you need to operate your mountain. Like they kind of just gave us like funding in exchange for like being a part of their pass family and whatnot, and allowing their guests to be to have access to the resort. But so yeah, I just did a lot of poster design and event design, and part of that Arc'teryx purchasing was funding for a new logo and brand identity and brand expression, because it had been since the early 2000s, I think, since Crystal Mountain had done that. And the team in upper management was starting to feel like, we're kind of ready for a new face. Like we're ready for like a refresh, an identity refresh, something that's like a little bit more current with the times. So what we originally did was brought in an agency from Denver that our president had worked with, and he had success with them, like rebranding Snowshoe Mountain, where he used to work, and they had a nice portfolio of other mountain rebrands, and so they seemed to be a good fit for us. We did look at local agencies, but I think they had some competitor clients that it didn't line up to work with Crystal. So the agency really helped us build a foundation for the brand, with all the brand strategy and the research and looking at our customer demographics and where are people coming from, and like who is Crystal, like who is the Crystal skier and snowboarder. And
so let me interrupt you. Who is the Crystal skier and snowboarder? Where do people come from that ski and snowboard on that mountain?
Primarily, so because the pass, it's not a pass necessarily. It's right. It's a one-way road up 410, because they close it right there in Mount Rainier National Park. So we do get people over from Yakima, the east side, but it's not as common as, let's say White Pass, for example. That's their closest like home mountain. So it's primarily people from the greater Seattle area. And that can be anywhere like from, like up to Everett, down to like Olympia, and even down to Portland. Like we'd have people coming up from Portland on an extended trip. And that is, there's just a lot of terrain that Crystal offers. So there's a lot of space for people to spread out. And they work their asses off to keep the lifts spinning, so that everyone can enjoy it.
Okay. So really Crystal though is because of 410 being closed, it really is kind of a Western Washington destination.
Yeah, you can definitely say that. I'd say like to classify it as a destination, there's a lot of like, typically you think of like Whistler as a destination, because there's so many things to do there if you're not a skier or a snowboarder. And Crystal's kind of, it's kind of got that mom and pop feel still, because some of the people that are working there have worked there since they were teenagers. And so there's this kind of mom and pop feel that you still have there. And people that are just super passionate about the mountain and super passionate about the terrain and the lifestyle that they've created there. But yeah, it is a destination, I would say, for a lot of people. When they get there, they're either really stressed out because they just spent 4 hours driving with their kids screaming in the back, like wanting hot cocoa or whatever, or they really have to go to the bathroom, or there's like or they're really just like relaxed to be there, like, and happy to be there, if they've planned accordingly for their day.
So the ZAD agency was able to quantify, if you will, who's the avatar for Crystal Mountain. Okay.
So we came up with a few kind of personas, and here are these archetypes for our customer. We have these 3 different personas that we feel like our brand speaks to. Like, these are the people that are paying attention to us. And these are like general, like archetypes. And once we had that, we thought about, okay, how do we reach these people, and how do we talk to these people, and what do these people want? So looking at, where do these people ski? What stores do they shop at? Like, what's their income level? Like, what's their lifestyle? Like, what are they interested in? So you get that psychology aspect in the brand research. You really just like want to learn how you can connect with people, and how you can relate, and how you can communicate better. So they really helped us build a good foundation there.
And then after you left Crystal, you've got your own Mountainmind now, which is your own firm. Firm sounds grandiose,
It's really just me in my spare bedroom here.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, so you're a solo entrepreneur now. So I'm going to remind you of a couple things you said here. Not that I agree with you, but I'm going to remind you of a couple things you said. Number one, you said you don't like to sell. And number two, you don't like numbers. So running your own business doesn't require either of those two things.
Absolutely not.
None of that. You don't have to look. You don't have, No, I kid. But so as a solopreneur, how's this been? Now, you said you were always doing, you've been doing side jobs for a while. And in my brain, a side job is something you enjoy doing, but the lights are going to stay on because of the main gig. Like whatever you do for the main thing keeps the basic of life going. But the side hustle is something that you're doing to refresh your soul from the soulless job that you have, or whatever. So you've obviously sold because you've had side hustles for a long time. So you've obviously sold. But how has the journey been for you now? This is your shingle. This is your thing.
I see it as, I've always been a very I'd say independent person. But I really, really believe in the power of the collective and the power of collaboration. So although I do things alone, it's all about it. Like, these things would not be possible without other super talented creatives. Because I'm not an octopus. I don't have a camera over here, a tablet over here, and whatever. I can only do one thing at a time. I try to do as many things as I can at a time, but it's really been just tapping into the creative network here in Washington specifically, and I work with creative directors, art directors, illustrators, people of all practices to help bring these brands to life, and or refresh a new life, or communicate a new vision for whatever their goals are. That's been super, super fun. So I can't take all the credit for everything that I do. It's not just me out here. It's a big,
right.
It's a pool of creatives. We're all just kind of in this fishbowl together. And the outdoor industry gets smaller and smaller, the more I've been in it. And I love that. I love oh, so-and-so used to work at MSR, and now now we work on projects all together. And it's just so fun, pulling people together from different backgrounds that have maybe known each other for years. And it's just, it's really cool kind of seeing what kind of collaboration can happen. But one of my first couple projects freelancing was a lot of illustration work, because that was my background, was in fine art. And so people would hire me to paint pictures of their pets, because hey, you're an artist and I like your style. Can you paint a picture of my horse? Can you paint a picture of my cat? And that was kind of where I it wasn't really a business or like a hustle necessarily. It was more just like doing things because people needed them or wanted them, and they liked what I was putting out there in the world as an artist. And it's kind of always been that way. Like people have just seen my art, my designs, and they're like, well, I really like that. Can you do that for me? And I think people are realizing that there's so much more that goes into it than just like a pretty picture or like a logo. There's like a whole process, and because it just becomes so much more rich. Like anyone can make like something that looks cool, but it's like, what does it mean, and like what is it trying to communicate, and like what is it trying to sell?
Well, okay, you've just basically have said that you call yourself a brand steward. I would say a brand wrangler, maybe, because you're herding the cats to get them all together and all those things. But this is all involves salesmanship too. Mm-hmm. That you have to convince a business owner that they don't need to go to Fiverr to get a logo. Mm-hmm. That there's more to articulating the brand's vision and mission. Mm-hmm. And it's obvious that that's what you're passionate about. Mm-hmm. How do you convince business owners to, and I'm asking because as a business owner, so how do you convince business owners that you don't, and I'm not trying to disparage Fiverr, but totally, a lot of people, they want something and they want it as cheap as possible because they don't necessarily understand the value that it's providing. So how have you been able to express that to your clients, to these outdoor companies that you're working with?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's kind of a two-way street. It's like if you want to work together, let's find a way. Like let's meet each other in the middle. Like whatever works for like budget and timeline and needs. But I find that like the best relationships with clients are never the ones where I feel like I'm forcing them to see like my value, or see like see the value in branding. Like the best relationships are the ones that they already know they want to work together because there's something that there's experience like that I have or that I know that they want. So typically like it's just word of mouth, like how I get my clients or referrals, like, hey, we really liked working with Erica. You should go talk to her. Right. Or people just find my work on Instagram or through friends of friends. And that can be just super organic. And I find that like the relationships feel so much less strained. And sometimes like I do get people reaching out and saying, hey, I'm a small business and this is what I want to do. And I say, well, yeah, I would love to help you. But like, I also am a small business and I have bills to pay and groceries to buy. So I have to charge accordingly so that I can keep going. So sometimes like those numbers like don't line up, which is okay. And I like to have other designers and people that I can refer that maybe are side hustling as well. And maybe they don't charge as much, or they're younger in their career and they don't have like...
Or they don't eat as much? No, I'm just kidding.
Who knows? I do eat a lot, surprisingly.
Yeah, that's surprising. That's surprising. This is an audio only. This is an audio only format, and so I have to describe from what I'm seeing. What I'm seeing of Erica, she doesn't look like she eats a lot, folks. She's quite fit looking and on the thin side. Where I, on the other hand, am not. Well, I love that because I think what I'm hearing in our conversation is you're passionate about the outdoors, and this carries over to you're passionate about helping brands reach their market in a more of a holistic way. And I think that there's some synergy there. But I have to ask you a really important question now. I mean, this is maybe the most important question of the entire show, and that is coffee.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of coffee?
Fuel.
Creative fuel. All right. Where do you go for creative fuel?
I love just trying different coffee roasters, and I love like trying different blends. And I'm a black coffee drinker. I don't put anything in my...
I love it.
Unless it's the afternoon, unless it's like the second dose and I know it's going to like wreck me for the rest of the day. Like I'll do like some oat milk in my coffee, but or coconut milk or whatever. But in the morning, it's just black drip, pour over, maybe a little bit of like chaga, reishi, lion's mane, mushroom blend in there for some mental clarity, so I don't get the crash. But yeah, I'm like a gasoline drinker.
Okay. Currently, where are you getting coffee from? Who's roasting good beans for you, and what type of coffee? Like, what do you like? What's your coffee roast profile? I love like chocolatey with a little bit of fruity, dark flavors that are just really rich. I'm not a huge fan of like the tangy, lighter flavors. Like there's a couple coffee roasters I've tried in Portland that are really like trendy, and I just am like, I don't know if this like is really suiting my palate. Like I love the rich dark chocolate kind of undertones. Okay.
One of my favorite roasters in Washington is Blue Star Coffee, and they're based out in the Met House, and you can find their stuff in stores, like select stores around like usually co-ops, because I think they're organic and fair trade. But yeah, they're in the twist.
Which one of Blue Star's roasts do you like?
I like the Highway 20 blend. That's pretty good. Yeah, I like that one. But I also haven't tried all of them, so there's a little bit of exploration to do there. But have
you been to their roastery in Twisp?
Yes.
The new one or the old one? The little one?
I think the little one. Or the big one? Yeah, I haven't. Okay, I don't think I've been to the new one.
The new one. I haven't been inside the new one yet. I've only been to the order window. They're
so good.
I agree with you. They do a great, there's other, trust me, there's plenty of other great coffee companies, but Blue Star, everything about that company has been, I agree. And the Highway 20 blend, that's probably my go-to.
Whenever
that's fun.
Yeah. Whenever I go over there, I have to get some, and it's just not the same. Like, I mean, sometimes if I'm feeling nostalgic, I'll buy it at the grocery store here, but like usually it's at the Mazama store or at a little like shop over there. I like to stop there, but it just reminds me of like good times out there, because like the Met House is one of my favorite places, and it just reminds me of really good adventures and good vibes out there. But like Mocha Joe's is great. I think they're based in Anacortes. And right now I'm sipping on Pachamama Roasters. I think they're out of California somewhere. But I also just buy things based on like the labels and the packaging, because I'm a designer. I do too.
I'm teasing you. I do too.
I just like to have things on my shelf that look pretty.
That's like if somebody invites us over and it's like, okay, so what are we going to bring? Let's bring them a bottle of wine. I'm like, okay, great. So I go to the store and I'm like, oh, this label looks cool. Okay. If I'm going to lunch in Bellingham, where's a great place for me to go grab lunch?
Oh, depends on what kind of food you like and what like atmosphere you're looking for. But I'm pretty partial to like plant-based foods, because that's how I keep myself healthy and running.
It's not the coffee?
Well, probably the coffee. It's good. I've heard it's good for your heart. So I'm gonna hang on to that one. Let's see. It's so hard because I love there's so many restaurants that I love. There's like new stuff popping up all the time too. There's a place called Wild Oat that's where if I were to go to lunch today, like what I was craving, I would go there, and they have gluten-free, like vegan stuff, but they also have like stuff for everybody else too. Like they've got really great kind of sandwiches and soups and salads and fresh baked goods and coffee and good desserts and everything. But yeah, Wild Oat is great. I think they're kind of like, whenever I go there, they're really busy, but they're kind of tucked away. They're, I think, on Commercial or Cornwall. I always get those two streets mixed up, but yeah, they're great.
Okay. As we wrap this up, I have, well, two questions, and then you'll get the final word. So question number one, and this is a very, very important question. I want you to take it seriously. Okay. Just like everything else in this conversation. I'm not kidding. I'm not joking. Cake or pie, and why?
I'd say I was so much more of a pie person because I love like Thanksgiving pies, but I recently had some amazing cake from Port Angeles. There's this place called New Day Eatery, and they make like a gluten-free vegan cake. They make this like champagne cake that's just like insanely good, or peanut butter cake as well. They've got that, but I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm becoming more of a cake person, but I used to love apple pie. That was like my go-to.
That was your go-to? Yeah. So there's no wrong answer.
It's so hard.
I stole this question from a previous guest. They used it on their podcast, and I thought, this is just a great question because but I didn't realize was just how difficult of a question is for everybody.
Yeah.
Nobody goes, I like X, like cake or pie, and why? And they're like, they don't know how to answer. It's pretty funny. So the other question then is, what didn't I ask you that I should have asked you?
Let's see. I mean, we could go so many different routes. I mean, let's see. Yeah, we talked about snowboarding. We talked about splitboarding. We talked about design. I'd say, I think this is a fun question for people.
Okay.
I'll have two fun questions. Okay, number one is like, what do you collect? Like, what's the weird random thing that you collect? Because I think everybody collects stuff, but like to a certain extent. And I don't know, I don't even know why I brought this up. I just was looking around my room and I saw.
Well, so now you have to answer the question. So what do you collect?
I collect like things from the beach, like specifically bones that I find that are cool. It's pretty weird, but like I love finding like little like animal bones because I like to kind of guess like where they came from. And I'm a huge fan of Georgia O'Keeffe and her style, and like her illustration style is just like, I don't know, she was a very influential artist, and so the way that she painted bones and skulls and stuff I loved.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I'm giving you the kind of like perplexing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I seriously, I do understand. It doesn't matter what I think anyway. So you collect bones from the beach. All right.
What do you collect?
Currently, I'm not actively collecting anything, but in the past, I'll tell two things I've collected. I used to collect baseball cards, and for a while, I actually made a living selling pre-World War II West Coast minor league baseball memorabilia. So think about how niche that is, right? I mean, that's super, super niche. But I used to collect baseball cards that came in cigarette packs from 1909, 1910, and 1911 from a tobacco company out of San Francisco called Oback Tobacco. And they were baseball cards of West Coast ball players from Victoria, Seattle, Tacoma, Spokane, Portland, San Francisco, Los Angeles. And so I collected those. That's very random. And the other thing I collected was and this was something you didn't have to cost money to do. So it was kind of a fun thing. I collected and traded every Grateful Dead concert that was recorded.
That's awesome.
I would trade to, and I did have a complete collection of every show that they recorded. So
very cool.
I don't, yeah. So those are random things that I've collected in the past. Now I'm not collecting anything. Yeah. Now I want to go look at my baseball cards. So to wrap this up, if people want to find out more about you, where can they find you online?
Primarily, I'm the most active on Instagram, and that's Mountainmind. So mountain, like a peak, and then mind, like mindfulness. So just one word, all lowercase. Or mountainminddesign.com is my website. That's all linked on Instagram as well. But Instagram's kind of a raw day-to-day, like what's going on, what's inspiring, what's happening, events, artwork, like stream of consciousness kind of style. Okay. That's all there.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time. This was a lot of fun for me. I learned there's a bunch of things I don't want to do, like splitboarding, and that's okay. It doesn't mean, but it's really apparent that you enjoy this stuff a lot, and we live in a state that has a ton of opportunities. Yeah. So,
well, thank you so much for having me.
I do have one last question.
Yeah, totally.
So we're recording this in October of 2022. I was going to say 2021 because I don't know what year it is anymore. October 2022. We're getting close to fall and winter, which means there will be more snowfall theoretically. Where do you want to go snowboarding this season?
I would really love to just explore more in the backcountry up here in the North Cascades, but I'd also love to go Canada. Like, never been to Whistler. I've never explored that area, so that's on the list. Just go north.
And you're fairly close. I mean, you're closer to it than we are. So awesome. Well, Erica, thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Scott. Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on. This was super fun.
Join us next time for another episode of the Exploring Washington State podcast.